Honourable Trevor Mallard.
That was a pathetic little contribution, the only contribution to date from the Minister, and she didn't even apologise for a poor drafting. She did not even apologise for the mess of a bill that she has brought to the committee stages of the House. She has 2 amendments already, and it is my bet, Mr Speaker, that she will be back in this House to further amend this legislation before the end of the year. It is my bet that she will be back in the House with further amendments to this legislation before the end of the year to correct the other three errors that we may or may not tell her about at some stage. And as Tohanare knows, she's got another train coming through, due for a report back very soon from the Transport and Industrial Relations Committee, and I am betting that she will be further amending these amendments as part of that exercise because of her rushed, hurried, pressured, useless legislation that she has brought before the House. Mr Chairman, I don't know if we have had, in the time that I can remember, a less effective Minister of Labour. I go back a long way. I do. I can remember my colleague Stan Roger, who, while one didn't always agree with him, was always thorough. He was well prepared. Jim Bolger was my local MP and Minister of Labour before I was a Member of Parliament, and he would never bring shoddy legislation to the House like this. He would have had the officials in his room for days and days and days working through and making sure that he had it right, rather than bringing a piece of legislation with 5 errors, only 2 of which have been identified to date by the Minister. And I just don't understand. I don't understand why someone who is apparently, I didn't know of her, unlike Mr Chevelle, who used to regularly feature in those little things in the legal books as one of the top 5 or 6 employment lawyers around the country, and certainly at the period before and after he was appearing in the Supreme Court, that was the case. I didn't know, to be fair, of Ms Wilkinson before when she was an employment lawyer in Christchurch, and she didn't feature in those cases. But I'm told, my friend Mr Chevelle assures me that she was a competent employment lawyer. Well, I would have thought a competent employment lawyer would have given this exercise at least she worked for a living rather than going around bottling union officials. Used to work for a living rather than going around bottling union officials and losing their jobs as a result of applying a broken bottle to the head of a union official, as Tohanare did. The point that I'm making is that it may be that if the Minister wants to take a wild and wonderful approach to legislation, if one wants to be lazy and lack thoroughness in the way that this legislation does, she should have got Tohanare to be the Minister, because that would fit, because this is a quality of legislation that we would expect from Tohanare if he had been the person who was involved in drafting the legislation. Mr Chairman, well, no, I think if you're going to match quality, with this, then this is Tohanare quality. I'm told by Mr Chevelle, and I accept his assurance that the Minister used. No, please not. The bill is not that bad. The bill is not that useless. It couldn't have been drafted by. Look, I've seen that member chair a select committee, and he can't even chair a select committee properly. And therefore, I like it. I hate going to that committee. But that's slightly off the topic, I think, Mr Chairman.
Very much.
Mr Chairman, I'd like to go back to the clauses in this bill and the fact that there are a number of amendments here. Mr. Chairman.
Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Mr. Chairman, there are a number of amendments here, and as you're aware, sir, and as I think it's generally been accepted by the House, this is the clause with the most substance in it. This is the machinery clause of this bill, and therefore it is. And I see that the minister's nodding, and she's right. This is the bill which we expect to debate. To have a series of amendments on, to have a lot of discussion on, and I will be interested in the views of members opposite. And I think, unlike the earlier stages where they were notable by their silence, I expect on this particular clause of the legislation that we will have a reasonable amount of debate and discussion. Mr. Chairman, one of the there are essentially two sets of amendments that I have there, although there are three. They'll be put to the House, I presume, in three parts, and two of them are alternative ways of having an expiry. Instead of there was a decision taken by the House not too long ago not to have the whole bill expire on the 8th of November. There is now, my suggestion is that there are sub-clauses which could expire on that date, and it wouldn't take the entire legislation out, but from our perspective it would from that time on render it more acceptable, and that is the reason that we've taken that approach. And the other one, sorry? Oh no! I have to. The member should catch up with the facts. While he might have been an assistant lecturer in law at a Polytech in Auckland, one would have thought that as a minister he would have learnt to read legislation and to get the facts that our amendments were on the table before the ministers. The minister was still asleep. The minister was still asleep when our amendments were tabled, and I make it clear. I want to make it clear that if we were supportive of making this legislation effective, we would support the minister's amendment, because it is a step, one of five necessary towards doing what the government wants to do. But we're not, so we won't. And so just to make that clear, and if the member had been awake instead of asleep yesterday, he would have seen some criticism on this side of the House of my colleague Charles Chauvel, the pending Attorney General inter alia, and when he made what I thought was a tactical mistake in giving the minister advice on one of the amendments, which we are now discussing, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chauvel was the person who I don't want to say unwittingly, but who I think without a proper tactical sense made some suggestions to the government of a way that they could do what they were trying to do. He was being helpful. Too helpful in my opinion. He was being helpful, but he was being too helpful to the minister. And if Mr. Matt, is he Dr. Matt? Oh dear, where did that come from? Raffle? I bet it came from the United States. We had someone here called Bernie, not Bernie Galvin. What was the other one? Bernie Ogilvie. Bernie Ogilvie had one of those doctorates as well. 12 weeks packet, quite a decent cheque, donation, and you become a doctor from the United States. And we see the evidence of it here. And Mr. Chairman, what I want to know is whether...
Hey, point of order, Dr. Campbell.
My colleague, Dr. Matt, has a PhD from that fine University of Cambridge.
Look, I guess that's a debating point, but we get to these kind of interplays when we just tend to perhaps disregard the fact that all members are honourable members. And that's what happens. It starts to degenerate. So just a little caution. Let's try and keep the nomenclatures appropriate.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I think there's nothing wrong with a doctorate from Cambridge, Massachusetts. And it's fine, as long as the cheque that was paid for it was not too big, Mr. Chairman. And it may well qualify Mr. Chairman, the member